Alberta is once again at the center of a political battle that promises to redefine the federal landscape in Canada. Prime Minister Danielle Smith has decided to take legal action against Justin Trudeau's government, questioning amendments to the Impact Assessment Act, which, according to her, continue to be an interference in provincial jurisdiction. This confrontation is not just a technical issue. It is a direct confrontation between the central power and regional autonomy. In 2023, Canada's Supreme Court declared key parts of the original law unconstitutional, stating that they encroached on exclusive areas of the provinces. Although the federal government revised the legislation to comply with the ruling, Smith says the changes are simple puns designed to maintain disguised federal control over Alberta's resources and projects. The problem lies in the economic implications. Oil and gas-rich Alberta fears that these regulations will act as a brake on investment. The Premier argues that the process of approving projects is so long and complicated that many investors choose to take their money elsewhere. According to analysts, this uncertainty is a direct threat to Canada's productivity, which is already the second lowest among the G7 countries. Smith's speech isn't just about economics. It is also a declaration of principles. The Alberta Sovereignty Act within a united Canada has been its response to Ottawa's perceived centralist policies. For Smith, it's not just about regulating emissions or assessing environmental impacts. It is about protecting Alberta's right to decide its own future. He firmly declares, "We will not accept that our decline is managed. We will not allow Ottawa to transform Canada into a place where capital disappears without a trace." Meanwhile, the federal government accuses Smith of using divisive tactics and rejecting constructive dialogue. However, these criticisms seem to have no impact on the fervent defenders of provincial autonomy. This conflict not only highlights the tensions between Ottawa and Alberta, but also raises broader questions about the balance of power in the Canadian Federation. On the other hand, the New Democratic Party has put the spotlight on another issue of social justice. Benita Zarrillo, a critic of the NDP on disability and inclusion issues, has introduced a bill to eliminate unfair deductions from Canada's disability benefit. Currently, those who receive this aid may have their benefits reduced or denied if they have a partner or share housing. Zarrillo calls this system cruel and insensitive, noting that it punishes people with disabilities for making basic decisions about their personal lives. With more than 1 million people with disabilities living in poverty in Canada, this change is urgent. The bill seeks to ensure that benefits are calculated solely on the basis of individual income, leaving behind a system that seems designed to perpetuate precariousness. People with disabilities deserve to live with dignity, to make decisions without fear of losing their livelihood, says Zarrillo, while criticizing both the Liberals for not acting and the Conservatives for prioritizing the richest. These two stories, while seemingly disconnected, reflect a constant in Canadian politics: the struggle between promises of fairness and the realities of a federal system in tension. The coming months will determine whether Alberta can reassert its autonomy from Ottawa and whether the NDP can change a system that many see as deeply unfair. The repercussions of these two stories transcend Alberta's borders and affect the political and social landscape across Canada. On the one hand, Danielle Smith's battle against Ottawa is generating a broader debate about federalism and the role of provinces in economic and environmental decision-making. It's not just Alberta. Other provinces are also watching this confrontation closely, wondering whether the current model of centralized governance really respects the diversity of regional needs. Smith has gained support within Alberta, especially from those who see the federal government as a threat to the province's economic opportunities. The US versus them narrative has resonated with a foundation that feels ignored by Ottawa, especially on issues such as the energy industry, which is vital to Alberta's economy. However, critics warn that this defiant stance could lead to further polarization within the Canadian Federation, making it more difficult to find collaborative solutions. On the other hand, Bonita Zarrillo's bill is beginning to attract significant attention nationally. The proposal exposes not only the flaws in the benefit system for people with disabilities, but also the deep inequalities faced by these citizens. With the rising cost of living and access to affordable housing increasingly limited, current policies are seen by many as perpetuating a crisis of structural poverty. The NDP, under Zarrillo's leadership, is using this moment to criticize both Liberals and Conservatives. This is not a partisan problem, says Zarrillo. It's a matter of basic humanity. Her message is gaining traction among disability rights groups, which have fought for years for a fairer system. However, it remains to be seen whether this pressure will be enough to force significant changes in federal policy. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing increasing scrutiny on both fronts. The dispute with Alberta highlights tensions between its progressive environmental approach and provincial economic concerns. At the same time, criticism about the lack of support for people with disabilities damages his image as a leader committed to social equity. Trudeau finds himself caught between two narratives that demand urgent and specific solutions. In this context, Conservatives have begun to position themselves as an alternative, though not without their own set of challenges. Critics point out that its focus on tax cuts and reduced public spending often ignores the needs of the most vulnerable. For many, this lack of concrete proposals to address problems such as poverty or provincial autonomy remains a barrier to building trust among voters. What is clear is that these tensions will not be easily resolved. The Alberta battle could set legal precedents that affect the relationship between Ottawa and the provinces for decades. At the same time, Zarrillo's proposal has the potential to initiate a profound change in how social benefits are addressed in Canada. These struggles, although different, share a common thread: the search for a balance between justice, autonomy, and the well-being of citizens. The next chapters of these stories will be critical not only for the people directly affected, but also for the broader political landscape. The question is whether Canada, as a federation, will be able to find a middle ground where provinces can thrive without feeling stifled by central government, and where the most vulnerable citizens are not left behind. The battle between Alberta and Ottawa continues to escalate, with implications that go beyond a simple legislative dispute. The Impact Assessment Act and its amendments have become a symbol of something much deeper: the struggle for control of a nation's resources and economic direction. For many in Alberta, this confrontation represents a last bastion to protect their independence in the face of what they perceive as a federal government that prioritizes its own political agendas over regional realities. Danielle Smith has been emphatic that it's not just about defending oil and gas, but about resisting a centralist model that she says threatens to dampen Alberta's entrepreneurial spirit. His words, although polarizing, have consolidated a movement that demands that the provinces not only have a voice, but also an effective vote on issues that directly affect their economies. The repercussions of this narrative are influencing even other provinces that are now considering how federal decisions affect their own interests. Meanwhile, Ottawa insists that regulations are necessary to ensure that projects meet national environmental and social standards. However, critics point out that these justifications often overlook regional differences, leading to a sense of exclusion in provinces such as Alberta.